Welcome to Buzz Around the World with India Today. Explosions rocked the Sudanese capital Khartoum as fighting between the regular army and paramilitaries raged for another day, with the death toll rising to nearly 100. The violence erupted on Saturday after weeks of power struggles between Sudan's army chief Abdel Fattah al-Burhan and his deputy, Mohamed Hamdan Daglo, who commands the powerful paramilitary Rapid Support Forces, or the RSF. The latest violence sparked by the two generals has reflected the deep-seated divisions between the regular army and the RSF. The raging battles triggered a wide international outcry, with appeals for an immediate ceasefire and dialogue. After a meeting on the situation in Sudan, the African Union said a senior official would immediately travel there on a ceasefire mission. Despite the wide calls for a ceasefire, the two generals appeared in no mood for talks. In an interview with Sky News Arabia, Daglo, also known as Hemati, said, "Burhan the criminal must surrender." The army declared Daglo a wanted criminal and the RSF a rebel militia. There will be no negotiations or talks until the dissolution of the group, it said. The fighting broke out after bitter disagreements between Burhan and Daglo over the planned integration of the RSF into the regular army, a key condition for a final deal aimed at ending a crisis since the 2021 military coup they orchestrated together. Burhan, who rose through the ranks under the three-decade rule of now-jailed former President Omar al-Bashir, has said the coup was necessary to include more factions in politics. The coup has already derailed a transition to civilian rule following the 2019 ouster of President Omar al-Bashir and piled on a spiraling economic crisis in Sudan. The RSF was created under Bashir in 2013, emerging from the Janjaweed militia that his government unleashed against non-Arab ethnic minorities in Darfur a decade earlier, drawing accusations of war crimes. Daglo later called the coup a mistake that failed to bring about change and reinvigorated remnants of Bashir's regime ousted by the army in 2019 following mass protests. Let's explain the timeline of the power struggle in Sudan. Following the ouster of longtime ruler Omar al-Bashir in April 2019, Sudan had been governed by a transitional sovereign council. This council comprised military and civilian leaders who were tasked with guiding the country towards elections and a civilian government. The power-sharing arrangement was the result of long negotiations and widespread protests that had called for a transition to democracy. However, on October 25, 2021, the military, led by Burhan and Daglo, seized power, arresting Prime Minister Abdullah Hamdok and other civilian government members. The coup leaders declared a state of emergency and dissolved the Sovereign Council, as well as the transitional government. The coup was met with widespread domestic and international condemnation. Pro-democracy activists and citizens took to the streets to protest against the military takeover, leading to clashes with security forces and several deaths. The international community condemned the coup and called for the immediate release of detained civilian leaders and the restoration of the transitional government. And now the two generals are fighting within themselves. The coup in Sudan was seen as a significant setback for the country's progress towards democracy and raised concerns over the potential for increased instability and conflict in the region. Now these clashes have forced Sudanese to hunker down in their homes, with fears of a prolonged conflict that could plunge the country into deeper chaos, dashing all hopes for return to civilian rule. Since Saturday, the two sides have traded blame over who started the fighting. Each has claimed the upper hand by declaring control of key sites, including the airport and the presidential palace, but none of their claims could be independently verified. Fighting also raged in parts of Sudan other than the capital city. Do tell us what you think about this video in comments section, and for more news updates subscribe to India Today.